It's been a busy old campaign. You'll have met loads of people around the country who will say, I'm battered. You talk about how people have had the hope beaten out of them. Can they put their trust in you to kind of give them some hope over the next few years?
Yes, we want to restore hope to the country. And it's desperately needed because after 14 years of chaos and division and failure and promises that haven't been kept, you can see why people have lost hope. And, when they see the Partygate or, going on with Rishi Sunak as well as Boris Johnson breaking the rules that they were following, see the COVID contracts being handed out at taxpayers' expense, contracts which didn't work. And then obviously the gambling scandal. You can see why people have said, I'm not sure I have the hope of a better future. We can restore that. We've got the policy and the plans to restore that, but also it's about a mindset change. I intend, if we get over the line, to return politics to service and turn our back on self-entitlement, and to find unity where at the moment the government has tried to find division. And that will be, if you like, the ordinary hope, the credible hope that Britain desperately needs.
And do you think voters have kind of clocked to appreciate kind of how big this decision could be on Thursday?
Well, look, across the country, people are saying they want change. I haven't met many people who've said, I'm perfectly happy with things as they are. I don't want anything to change. Almost everybody says, look, things aren't working properly. Health services, on its knees. I don't feel better off. But it is really important as we go into these last sort of hours and days of the campaign to be really clear that change only happens if you vote for it. And it's a massive decision on Thursday for the future of the country because it's the opportunity to turn our back on 14 years of chaos and division and failure and to turn the page and start to rebuild the country with Labour and to ensure that people are genuinely better off, not just materially better off in terms of their living standards, but better off because the health service is not just back on its feet, but fit for the future. Public services are restored to what people expect, what they're entitled to, and that we are building and putting in place the sort of foundations for a better future for the next generation.
And you talk a lot about a decade of renewal, kind of if you look at the polls, we're within touching distance of getting that. But someone was a bit confused about what is a decade of renewal. What would you say to kind of someone who didn't quite understand that language?
Well, decade is because things are going to take time. And we need to be clear, we're going to fix the fundamentals. We're going to make our country better. Renewal, because it's not just about patching up and repairing what we've got. It's about renewing and taking forward our country. National is really to convey this sense of aspiration for the country that people, I think, do want to be, they want to get on themselves, they want their family to get on, their community to get on, and they want their country to get on. So a decade of national renewal is the sort of generational change that only happens under a Labour government, and where people will say, this is a genuinely different and better place to live. I'm more hopeful about the future. And the missing ingredient of the last 14 years, which we used to have but we lost, which is that sense that things will be better for our children. That used to come from my mum and dad. I mean, we actually, my dad worked in a factory, my mum was a nurse, we didn't have a lot of money, couldn't make ends meet on a number of occasions, but my mum and dad passionately believed that things would be better for their children, and it comforted them. We've lost that, we need to get it back.
Do you worry, obviously the polls all suggest that you're likely going to become Prime Minister. You've obviously talked a lot about complacency. Do you kind of feel it is within touching distance, but without using metaphors, it could fall through, like, slip through your fingers? How do you feel about kind of the state of affairs?
The polls don't predict the future. And never forget that under our constituency system, each constituency has to be won, and many of them will go down to the wire to a few hundred votes either way. Sherwood Forest, where we're sitting now, is a constituency that, is going to be very closely fought, very closely won if we get it over the line. And that's the nature of the last days and hours into this election. That's why we must not be complacent. We are confident in our arguments. We are absolutely campaigning with a spring in our step and a smile on our face because we want to bring about this change. We are the only party left that's putting a positive case before the country. The Tories are going into this sort of ever decreasing spiral of despair and desperation. And we are confident in our arguments, well thought through about the change we want to bring about for the country.
And we've had, the last few years have been quite chaotic in politics. I mean, the time you've been an MP, there's been a lot of kind of different things happening in Westminster. I think you talk about getting a clear mandate. If you did get a clear mandate from the people, would that help draw an end to that chaos?
Yes, it would. And that's important because the task that we will have of cleaning up, fixing, and then making sure that as a country we renew and go forward, that's a massive task given the damage that's been done in the last 14 years. And what a strong mandate gives is a strong foundation for that change. It allows people to be part of it and to own the change for our country. And it allows a mindset change so that we move to the politics of service, not self-entitlement. And that is really, for that, you need a strong mandate, the strongest possible mandate. And so I do say, if you want change, vote for it. But I also say, if you want change, be part of it, because that is the opportunity on Thursday.
You mentioned, you've alluded to the comments from, or this whole kind of whipping up of this interview you gave yesterday and the whole you're clocking off at 6 p.m. and how do you feel that you say it's desperate from the Tories, but when you use attacks like that on you, does it make you feel angry? Do you laugh at it? How do you do you feel hurt by it?
It's laughably ridiculous. It is. All I was saying was that I want to spend some time with Vic, my wife, and the kids.
Yeah.
And quite often her dad comes over on a Friday night as well. And it is laughably ridiculous that anybody wants to make anything of this. Of course, it doesn't mean I don't work on Fridays. I've done that many times and we'll do it, no doubt, in the future. But I think that the telling bit, I mean, so I laugh at it. It is utterly ridiculous, desperate and pathetic. The serious bit of it is actually not so much that. It's that with 2 days to go, they've seriously got nothing positive to say to the country. Nothing, no answer to the question, how would the country be better under your watch? They've given up on pretending that they're going to improve things, and that's because they can't.
And I imagine if you do win this Friday, 6 p.m, you'll be getting your sleeves rolled up rather than getting ready to kind of wind down for the weekend.
We will be working from minute one, sleeves rolled up. We've already set out the first steps in government, and we will be getting on with that because people want to know that we're going to fix the fundamentals. They recognise that that is going to take some time, but they also want some of the immediate problems addressed. So the waiting lists have to be addressed straight away. So we will be on day one, sleeves rolled up, beginning our work on the 40,000 extra appointments we need in our hospitals. We'll be making sure that we're recruiting the teachers we need for our secondary schools. We'll be getting the police we need in our neighbourhoods, setting up GB Energy, making sure our border security force command is in place. So we will be working very hard in the service of the country.
For someone who might be about to become Prime Minister in a few days, you seem to still kind of manage to carry on kind of a level that you've kind of risen above the kind of everyday stress.
Well, we started the campaign in good spirits with a smile on our face and a spring in our step. And we continued every day since then. They're tough going campaigns. There are always tough days on a campaign. But I have to say, the professionalism and teamwork of my team has been extraordinary. We have prepared for this and we have worked through as a team any of the wrinkles that we had along the way. And that is to do with professionalism and preparedness. But it's also to do with the confidence that comes with knowing we're putting a powerful argument to the country, an argument we are really proud of. And we are seeking a big change on Thursday that we are all personally within the team and across the whole Labour movement committed to. And that's why we've got a smile and spring in our steps. And that will continue until 10 o'clock on Thursday night, because we need to make sure that all of that translates into votes, and that nobody's complacent and nobody thinks that it's job done or we don't need to come out to vote. You do. If you want change, you've got to vote for it.
And have you had nights where you've woken up in the middle of the night and just thought, like, shit, we've lost the poll lead, it's all over, it's kind of...
No, the only things that I've sort of been concerned about during this campaign, and actually for some time now, is the impact on my family and my children in particular. My boy was 16 on Sunday, and my girl is 13 and a half. It's quite impactful ages. So that's the only thing that I've been concerned about.
And on Thursday night, when the exit poll drops at 10 p.m, will you be pacing around at home? How on earth what will you be doing?
I'll certainly be pacing around somewhere, because, that's a very important moment. They tend to be very accurate. I'm not quite sure where we'll be at the moment, but there'll be a lot of pacing going around until the details of the poll actually drop.
And we talked a bit about Tory sleaze. When Rishi Sunak became PM, he said he was going to bring accountability, professionalism, all of that. Is that your plan? Do you think you'll be more successful at doing that?
Well, he hasn't done it. And he hasn't done it because he hasn't shown the leadership necessary. In order to bring about integrity and accountability and honesty to politics, which is much needed, you've got to have the basic leadership skills to do it. He has not taken his party and marshaled it in the direction of change. He has continued to try and triangulate across the party without a clear lead. For that reason, he hasn't got to grips with the things that he said he would get to grips with. We have to change politics. We have to restore politics to ensure that people see it as a force for good. That starts with the politics of service, and that starts on day one as a mindset change if we're elected to serve the country.
And if any of your ministers get dragged into scandals, you'll take a firm line. You won't kind of just turn the other way to them.
Yes, absolutely.
And when Rishi Sunak had Liz Truss's resignation honours to deal with, you said you wouldn't do any yourself. Do you think Rishi Sunak should do resignation honours? And do you think Alistair Jack, who was caught up in the betting stuff, should be getting a period?
Well, look, I mean, I'm not going to start interfering with what Rishi Sunak may do if he loses the election, because I don't want to get ahead of myself. But there is a serious point underpinning it. For people who are still paying the price for Liz Truss's mini budget, to see her advisors swanning around in the House of Lords because she put them forward and Rishi Sunak was too weak to say no, is something I think that is galling for people who are paying the price of the mess that she made of our economy.
So say 5 years, 10 years time, you've done some of your changes. Is it one of the hopes that we'll be able to kind of stand taller as a country? What do you want the feeling in the country to be? We talked about the tangible things about hospitals, schools and stuff, but do you want a kind of change in mindset in the country as well?
Yes, stand tall, a feeling that Britain is back, that we have real pride in what we're doing as a country. That matters to people. People are hugely proud of their country, and rightly so. And we've got a lot to be proud of. And I want that restored. It's bundled up with the hope we have of a better future. We're a great country. We've got incredible potential within our individuals, within our communities. There's no community I've been to in this campaign or at any time I've been a politician that doesn't have huge ambition for itself. All it wants is a government that shares and understands that ambition. We will weld that together and we will stand tall as a country.
And prisons, you've been talking about, we know the problems in prisons. One of the ideas that was being looked at was the sentencing bill, and talk about whether you get rid of people having sentences of less than 12 months. Is that something you'll reconsider again?
Well, we're going to inherit a very difficult problem in relation to prisons because the government hasn't built the prisons we need for the number of prisons we have. It's a very basic failure. And the idea that our criminal justice system is now one where we're releasing prisoners early who should be in prison, and we're telling the police not to arrest people, tells you just how broken it is.
But there's two things you can do. You can either do that, or you could do the 40% thing that the prison governors want.
We'll have to address that pretty early on when and if we are able to get over the line and form a government. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend that on Friday of this week we can build a prison when the government has manifestly failed to do it over many years.
Final question. If you are lucky enough to win on Thursday night, on Friday it looked like there might be some showers in London. We have an umbrella ready at hand.
We'll have an umbrella. We will not do what Rishi Sunak did, which was to stand solitary in the rain, claiming to have a plan, but no umbrella when it's raining. We will be well prepared, something the Prime Minister has never been.